What if I told you that one single map changed how the entire world saw itself, literally? For centuries, this document dictated the known boundaries of our planet, but it had one massive, glaring omission. A whole continent just gone. Was this the biggest blunder in the history of map-making, or was something more mysterious at play? Today, we're diving deep into the strange and fascinating story of the map that erased a continent. Welcome back, history detectives. If you love unraveling ancient secrets and cartography mysteries, you're in the right place. Be sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss our next adventure into the past. All right, let's set the scene. Imagine a world without satellites, GPS, or even reliable ships. The year is 1489. Christopher Columbus is still trying to get funding for his voyage, and the world feels both immeasurably vast and surprisingly small. In this era, maps weren't just tools for navigation. They were works of art, political statements, and encyclopedias of everything known to humanity. They were, in essence, the internet of their day. Enter Henricus Martellus Germanus, a German cartographer living in Florence, Italy. Florence was the epicenter of the Renaissance, a hub of art, science, and discovery. Martellus was one of the best in the business, and in 1489, he created a masterpiece. A sprawling, hand-drawn world map that was, for its time, the most detailed and accurate representation of the planet ever produced. It incorporated the latest Portuguese discoveries along the coast of Africa and was heavily influenced by the work of the ancient geographer Ptolemy. This map was a sensation. It was studied by scholars, coveted by kings, and most famously, it was consulted by Christopher Columbus himself before he set sail in 1492. So, what did Martellus's map show? It depicted Europe, a massive Asia stretching far to the east, and an Africa that, for the first time on a widely circulated map, had a southern tip. This was revolutionary. It meant that a sea route to the Indies around Africa was possible. But there's one continent conspicuously absent, one that had been known, at least in part, for centuries. And that continent is Africa. Wait, what? Didn't I just say the map showed Africa with a southern tip? Yes, but here's where the story gets bizarre. Martellus's map, while showing the outline of Africa, essentially erased its interior. West Africa, a region bustling with powerful and wealthy empires like Mali and Songhai, was depicted as a nearly empty void. The vast, rich heart of the continent, blank. This wasn't just a lack of detail. It was a conceptual erasure. For anyone looking at this map, the second largest continent on Earth was reduced to a coastline, a barrier to be sailed around, not a world to be explored or engaged with. Now, you might be thinking, well, maybe they just didn't know what was in there. And that's partially true. European knowledge of the African interior was limited, but it wasn't zero. For centuries, trade routes had crossed the Sahara. Gold, salt, and enslaved people flowed from the interior to the Mediterranean coast. Stories of legendary rulers like Mansa Musa, the king of Mali, whose wealth was so immense it destabilized economies on his pilgrimage to Mecca, were well known. Ancient sources, like those from the Greek historian Herodotus, described great rivers and civilizations deep within the continent. So why did Martellus, a man known for his meticulous detail, leave it all out? This is where we move from a history mistake into a true cartography mystery. There are a few compelling theories. The first is the Ptolemaic influence theory. Martellus, like all cartographers of his time, was obsessed with the work of Ptolemy, the 2nd century Roman geographer. Ptolemy's Geographia had been rediscovered and was the gold standard. However, Ptolemy's knowledge of sub-Saharan Africa was extremely fuzzy. He famously depicted the Indian Ocean as a landlocked sea, enclosed by an unknown southern landmass. Martellus corrected this by showing an open sea route, but he may have been hesitant to fill in the interior with information that wasn't sanctioned by his ancient hero. In this view, he prioritized classical authority over contemporary, albeit messy, knowledge. It was a choice to be scientifically conservative, which had the unintended effect of erasing a continent's worth of people and history. But there's a more deliberate and perhaps more unsettling theory. This is the economic and political theory. By the late 15th century, Portugal was pouring immense resources into finding a sea route to the spices of the East. Their entire national project was focused on circumnavigating Africa, a map that presents Africa as a mere coastline, an obstacle to get around rather than a destination in itself, perfectly aligns with this goal. It visually simplifies the Portuguese mission. Why clutter the map with details of inland empires that might complicate the narrative or suggest alternative goals? By rendering the interior as a blank space, the map implicitly argues that the only thing that matters about Africa is its edge. The terra incognita, or unknown land, becomes a terra nullius, a nobody's land, ripe for exploitation and colonization without moral consequence. The map, in this sense, isn't just a record of geography, it's a piece of political propaganda. The consequences of this cartographic choice were enormous. Martellus's map, and others like it, became the standard. When Columbus used it, he wasn't just looking for a route to Asia. He was looking at a worldview where entire non-European interiors were deemed empty or irrelevant. This mindset traveled with him and with the generations of explorers, conquerors, and colonizers who followed. The blank spaces on the map became a justification for conquest. If nothing is there, then anything can be claimed. The myth of the Dark Continent, an empty, savage land waiting for European enlightenment, has its roots right here, in the ink of a 15th century map. What's truly incredible is that for 500 years, the full impact of Martellus's map was hidden from us. The original map became faded and worn, its text and details illegible. It was just an old, brown piece of parchment in Yale University's library. But in 2014, a team of researchers used multispectral imaging, a high-tech process that photographs the map using different wavelengths of light, to reveal its secrets. Suddenly, mountains, rivers, and dozens of place names, invisible for centuries, appeared on the screen. The restored map confirmed just how much information Martellus had access to, and how much he chose to omit or marginalize. It showed he was aware of the Great Lakes of Central Africa and the sources of the Blue Nile. He knew of empires and kingdoms. The information was there. The choice was to push it into the background, to create a clean, simple, and dangerously misleading image of the world. So, was it a mistake, or was it by design? The evidence points towards a complex mix of both. Martellus was working within the scientific constraints of his time, deferring to ancient masters. But he was also a product of his era, creating a tool that served the economic and political ambitions of his European patrons. His map is a powerful reminder that maps are never neutral. They don't just show us the world, they tell us how to see it. They frame our understanding, shape our ambitions, and can even justify our worst impulses. The story of the map that erased a continent is more than a historical curiosity. It's a lesson in how easily information can be manipulated, how blanks can be more powerful than facts, and how a single document can cast a shadow that lasts for centuries. It forces us to ask, what continents are we erasing from our own mental maps today? Thank you so much for joining me on this journey into one of history's greatest cartographic mysteries. If you found this fascinating, please give this video a thumbs up and share it with someone who loves a good historical puzzle. And don't forget to subscribe and ring that bell so you can join me for our next exploration. Until then, stay curious.